Hello, I hope you're doing well. In this video, I want to talk about predicates and quantifiers. Most likely, you have heard of statements that are predicates with quantifiers. A predicate is a statement whose truth value is based off of a variable. Like for instance, every real number is positive. That is false because there are negative real numbers, like -5. So there are different components that we need to talk about for a predicate. That is the domain of the problem. And there are various types of quantifiers. There's a universal quantifier and an existential quantifier. A for all or there exists. We'll talk about many examples through this video. Another example, a non-mathy one. All mammals are cows. Again, that is false because you can find a mammal that is not a cow. Do you have an example? If I change the for all to there exists a mammal who is a cow. The answer is yes. I've seen plenty of them driving down the highway. So for all, there exists. Sometimes we want to prove a statement to be true, and other times we want to come up with a counterexample to show that it is false. In each one of those examples, we had to have some prior knowledge about the objects. In other words, what is the domain that we're talking about? One of the examples was real numbers. Other examples about mammals. So you have to know something about mammals, and something about cows, and something about positive numbers. What happens if I said there exists a number whose square is negative? That's a little ambiguous, because what do I mean by number? If I say real number, then it is false, because no real number, when you square it, is negative. But if you pick a complex number, like I squared is -1. So without a proper description of the domain, it's going to be very hard to answer these questions. It's going to be the answer of, well, it depends what the domain is. So we need to be very careful what we mean by domain. Some of the time the domain will be real numbers, will be integers, will be positive whole numbers. Sometimes they'll be more abstract. But in every example, we have to understand what the domain is that we're talking about. We also need to know some prerequisite material. Some algebra stuff is going to become very handy. Orders of operations, less than, greater than, how do you isolate a variable? Those typical things are prerequisites. I will go through some examples, and we will talk about how to deal with that manipulation. So I'd like to move to the Xi book and go through one of the participation activities with you. In this particular activity, the domain is given. It says proving something is true for all arbitrary positive integer x. That means the domain is positive integers. So that's what we're going to start off with on this. And I'm going to go through this, and I'm going to hit start, and it's going to bring you through the first couple steps here. The first thing that we know is 0 is less than x. I know that because arbitrary positive integer x. What I can do is add 1 to both sides. The key thing here is not that I'm allowed to add 1 to both sides. It's why do we want to add 1 to both sides. So looking at this expression that we're trying to get to, we have an x plus 1. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. Now what does that do? 0 plus 1 is 1. X plus 1 is, well, x plus 1. And adding 1 leaves the inequality exactly the same. Now, how do you think we can go from this truth to this over here? Well, if I divide both sides by x plus 1, do not do this cross multiplication thing, do only one thing at a time, I get the exact statement that I want. Now, why am I allowed to divide? Well, x plus 1 I know is not negative. In fact, it is positive because, well, x plus 1 is bigger than 1. Remember, you need to take that into account when dividing. Dividing by negative numbers changes the inequality. It reverses it. So be really, really careful about this. So this is a really quick participation activity. And there are other ones in this section. I'm expecting you to go through all of these. As you can see, we're going to need to know some algebraic things. So throughout the course, you should be reviewing some of your algebra. Dividing by positive numbers, dividing by negative numbers, dealing with inequalities. When we talk about a little bit more advanced things, don't be scared to ask me questions. If you don't know something, please ask me a question. It's really, really important. Well, I hope that video was helpful. Have a great day. See you later. Bye.